In the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Please be seated. Hello, everybody. You can't say it enough. Merry Christmas, right? I mean, we've been working hard to get here, working through Advent and working toward this night of celebration, this night of great wonder, and the sacred is breaking in on our lives, on our world tonight, and it is good to be in this place worshiping this one who is light and love. The noted author Madeleine L'Engle, she's probably, I think her storytelling, her writing, her ability to take theological questions, theological concepts, her ability, she has this uncanny ability to take really tough questions of theology, questions about God, and she has a way of being able to explain them through story. She has this wonderful gift. If you've read her books, again, Madeleine L'Engle. If you've read her books, some of her books, she really has this wonderful ability to bring into understanding things that sometimes are sort of hanging out there for us as it relates to the things of God. And so there's one particular, in her book, The Irrational Season, she talks about the different seasons of the liturgical year, and then on her chapter on Christmas, she talks about an experience she had as a child here in North Florida. Makes it a little bit more special for us, I think, tonight. To know that as a child, she remembers coming here to North Florida to visit her grandmother. And in this, as she's telling this story, of course, many years later, she tells this story of being a child and being awakened in the middle of the night. And she thought this was really strange because if you knew her as a child, her parents would never wake her up once they got her down. And so she thought this was pretty unusual, to be awakened by her parents. And the family all went out onto out the back of the house and down toward the beach. And what she remembers is this vast sort of dark canvas, this canopy of darkness that just holding her in that moment, and it was filled with what she calls, the word she uses is stupendous. The stars were lit in a stupendous way, she says, in a way that it just had a profound effect on her. When she became an adult, she remembered that moment and how extraordinary that moment was for her. She said it was just so full of wonder. It was so full of wonder. She would later on, in writing about it, she would look back on it and say, in that moment, she said, I think what it was like suddenly creation was far greater. Creation was far greater in that moment than all of the protected limits placed on a child, right? All the protected limits that we place on a child. She says, in that moment, I was aware of something great, something extraordinary that was pressing in on my life. And as she talks about it later, she says, in that moment, it was like creation was doing that. But then she began to look at it over and against the Christmas story. And she said, that's really the message that's the gift of the incarnation, isn't it? She says, that's the gift of the incarnation. The incarnation represents God sort of breaking through the boundaries of our daily restrictions, breaking through this sort of this canopy, this boundary that we establish over our lives that protects us, that keeps us in a particular place of awareness and understanding about life. And suddenly God breaks through. God invades our situation. God becomes one with us. And then God begins to teach us something about what our real potential is as human beings. This one who is the most human being that ever lived, she says, breaks through into our lives just the way creation broke through into my life as a child in the darkness of that night sky. The light of the stars, she said, would represent this moment for her of revelation, awakening, and new discovery. And it would inform her experience of Christmas and the incarnation, and that God is again kind of like us breaking into our lives. And the only thing that's missing, really, in the story is the wonder of a child, that childlike wonder that we've kind of maybe lost touch with, that we maybe don't live in as much anymore. And maybe that's the piece that completes the story, this childlike wonder that longs to reach out and make contact with, to grab hold of that star that represents new life, new love, and this light that promises to really demolish the limitations that we place on our lives. So then I was thinking about this. There was a film I was watching almost a couple of months ago. Carol and I were watching this film where there was a moment in the film where this woman in the film is heard saying, you can hear the frustration in her voice. She's really unhappy with her life. She's not in a good place. She's miserable. And it's really a tragic moment. It's a very sad moment in the film, and you hear her yell out suddenly, this is my life, she says. This is my life. This is who I am, she says. What do you want from me? Well, that moment came back to me this week. I heard that, almost as if I was right back there in that moment again, and I heard her, and I realized it wasn't just her cry, it's my cry. It's your cry. All of us who sort of settle for life as it is. Settle for life as it is. We can't imagine our lives any different. Can't imagine them any different. And so we just sort of move along in this procession of conformity, right? And we can't imagine that our lives could perhaps that we could somehow make a new beginning, or that somehow I really could see my life changing. That somehow this story of the Word made flesh could really be about me. And challenge me not to settle for anymore, but to strive for more. Wouldn't it be great if we weren't sitting around saying, well, this is my life. This is it. This is what it is. What do you expect from me? And God says more. I expect more. And God says, and this is what I think God says to us tonight, it's not that I expect more, God says, I need you to expect more from yourself. I need you to expect more of your life. Because as long as you're settling for what is, you're missing out on an extraordinary potential that you have for life and love. And so it was a week ago in our staff meeting that all of this kind of going around in my mind, bouncing around in my mind. And then in the staff meeting, we start every staff meeting on Tuesday mornings with a devotional. One of the staff members here will lead a devotion. Leela Quinlan led this devotion last Tuesday morning. And she used a video there in the conference room, and she used a piece from a hip-hop artist. And I thought it was wonderful. The name of the piece is Happy. It's called Happy. And now you got to know, this is a guy who I pretty much stay on the country stations pretty much all day. So I know, that's what I know, pretty boring. But that's who I am. I don't know this hip-hop stuff. But suddenly there was this video, and this guy, he's written this song called Happy, and I go home, I'm thinking about it. I was thinking about it for days, and then I went home and I wanted to pull it back up because there was something in the chorus that really stuck with me as it related to my sermon tonight. And so I called in my hip-hop. Katie wasn't around, so I called in my son, and I said, son, who is this Fannel Williams? Fannel Williams. And Richard says, Dad, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. Fannel Williams? Yeah, Fannel Williams, that's who it was. He said, Pharrell? You mean Pharrell Williams? I said, Pharrell, yeah, like I said, Pharrell. I said, you know Pharrell Williams? And he said, yeah, he's a really great songwriter and artist. And he said, well, I was listening to this piece called Happy at staff a few days ago, and I want to pull it up because I really like the chorus. And I said, you like it? And he said, it's a little light for me, but it was a little hokey for him, right? I mean, what's he going to say? It's a little hokey. And so we pulled it up, and there was that line again that grabbed hold of me last Tuesday. And he sings, he says, clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Oh, man. When I heard that, I had my sermon. That's where my sermon came from. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if happiness is your truth. Yeah, it breaks down theologically. I know. It breaks down. But so do the parables. They all break down too at some point. But anyway, this Pharrell guy became my best friend this week with this song, because I kept seeing this image of clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. And I thought, my gosh, that's the point. That's the point. We all have our little rooms. We're all locked away safely and securely in our little rooms. And we've got it all laid out just the way we like it. We've got it all planned out. Everything has its place. Everything has its place, and don't you mess with it. Right? Sound familiar? There's my table over there. That's the table of my faith experience. There's a chair over there that represents my politics. There's a lamp over there. It's not shining too bright anymore, but it represents my relationships with others. We've got it all kind of lined up the way we like it. This is who I am. This is my life. What do you expect of me? This is who I am. This is my life. Who do you expect of me? Is it any wonder that you and I stay in the same old places? It never really changes very much. We just sit around in the same old room that we don't want anybody to come in and mess with it or move anything around in it, challenge us in any way. Heaven forbid. I mean, don't take away my crutch. Don't take away all the things that I lean on, that I desperately hold on to, that at the end of the days is going to fail me miserably. Nevertheless, let me have my stuff, right? You know the rooms? You know the room, right? Represents my life and yours. The incarnation is a story of a God who invaded our homes, broke through the ceiling of those rooms, shattered those boundaries that you and I live in, that we hide behind, that keep us. This is what's really funny. We think they keep us safe and secure. This is what's really sad and tragic. It oftentimes takes a tragedy or calamity, or we have to hit the proverbial wall before we realize that the room really doesn't offer us very much at all. Just doesn't really offer us very much at all. And so I think what God says tonight is, don't wait for that day to come. Can you imagine your life as a room without a roof? Could you imagine a little more wonder in your life? Could you imagine an imagination that begins to sort of take you over and lift you up into a new place of being? Could you imagine reaching out of that room for the star, a star that has the power to lift you up into a whole new way of being, to mark a whole new beginning, full of life and love in ways you never thought possible? We have this enormous capacity for life. And yet many of us tonight, this week, will go right back to the room. And we will sit there and we'll keep it all the way it is, and we'll wonder why life doesn't get any better, why it doesn't change. We'll wonder why we're even miserable. The gift of Christmas is a wonderful gift. If you just let the power of this truth fall on your life, let it break down the barriers of our daily restrictions, all of our limitations. Wonder. Begin to live a life of wonder. Don't let other people tell you how to live. Don't let the world around us tell you how to live. Let God begin to inform your life and living in a bold, new, and exciting way. I pray you find that life in this new year. Whether it's here at Christ Church or some other place, I just pray that you don't settle anymore. I pray you don't settle anymore. Break through the ceiling. Grab hold of something that's real, that's going to be there for you till the end. Amen.